You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans! Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and there's a lot to get to today. Going to be previewing the AFC and NFC title games and Louisville Duke. I'll also be breaking down a couple baseball signings, but I got to start with Titans Chiefs, and I will start with breaking down the Titans. We need to start respecting them. Alright, this isn't some team that just got lucky once or twice. No, they actually know what they're doing. They've got one of the hottest running backs in the league right now in Derrick Henry. They have a great, and I mean great, secondary that has absolutely carried them this postseason with Tremaine Brock, Kevin Byard, and Adoree Jackson, who, by the way, my friend Brandon really likes. Go check him out on Twitter. His name is @StephSaucy. STEF Saucy. All one word. I know he gave me a plug the other day on his show, so figured I'd plug him here. And Brandon hit the nail on the head with Jackson. He is really shaping up to be a fantastic corner in this league. And he's a big part of what the Titans do defensively. And also, looking outside the secondary with their defense, Jarrell Casey is having a really good postseason, had a really good regular season, perennially underrated player. But speaking of underrated, there's a guy who I haven't mentioned, and I really should, because he has been the unsung hero of the Titans. And that is Brett Kern. That's right, we're talking about punters now. Punters are people too, in the immortal words of Rich Eisen. Every time the Titans call on him, he's pinning the other team back. Whether it's the Patriots or the Ravens, he was really on against the Patriots. And that's usually where the Patriots can take advantage of you, special teams, because they're so well disciplined there. Well, Brett Kern negated all of that. It's weird. We always talk about who the best kicker in the NFL is, if it's Justin Tucker or Greg Zuerlein. We never talk about punters. And Brett Kern is, without question, the best punter in the NFL. It's absolutely amazing what he's done this postseason. It's very rare that you focus this much on punting, and I understand that the casual football fan won't really care about it, but to the people who are diehards, they see it, they notice it, and the announcers were even talking about it. Mike Francesa mentioned it on Twitter. Derrick Henry is without question their most valuable player, but if you wanted to tell me that Brett Kern was the runner-up, I'd have a hard time disagreeing with you. He's been that dominant. If the game gets into a punt fest, which is very possible, any offense can be off on any given day. Any defense can step up on any given day. The Titans have the edge. And Mike Vrabel and Arthur Smith deserve a ton of credit for what they've done this year. Arthur Smith is going to get head coaching interviews in the next cycle And Mike Vrabel has cemented himself as one of the best coaches in the NFL. He's probably top 10. Yeah, he's definitely top 10. I don't think there's a question about that. And make no mistake about it, they're going to be a tough matchup for the Chiefs. Again, put some respect on the Titans' name. They've beaten two very good teams. It's not out of the question to think they can do it again. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I am not going to underestimate the Titans again. Having said that, though, I am going to pick the Chiefs to win a competitive game. I think the Chiefs will cover the spread, but I don't think the Titans will get run out of the building. With all due respect to Derrick Henry, and I truly do mean with all due respect, he's not as dominant as Patrick Mahomes. What Mahomes did last week is nothing short of incredible. Leading the Chiefs back from 24-0 when everyone in the building was giving up hope. It was an amazing performance, one of the best performances in NFL playoff history. Travis Kelce had the game of his life. He caught 3 touchdowns. The one edge that the Titans have, and this is a big edge, is the running game. The Chiefs, last week, with the exception of Mahomes, could not run the ball effectively. And even then, you don't want Mahomes doing that 10 or 15 times a game. You want Mahomes to air it out. Now, you don't take away his scrambling ability. If nothing is there, give him the green light to run for it. But the Titans' run game is exponentially better than the Chiefs' run game. It's not even in the same universe. Defensively, Reggie Ragland was really their star last week. He was the only great player on defense last week for the Chiefs. Their secondary played well. Bashard Breeland, Kendall Fuller, and Rashad Fenton. But I think Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo would sleep a lot better if guys like Chris Jones and the Honey Badger and Juan Thornhill and Emmanuel Ogbah stepped up. Realize something. The Chiefs were very, very, very close to losing that game. I guarantee you, if you simulate that game from the point where the Texans went up 24-0, 90 to 95% of the time, the Texans win. It has nothing to do with how good the Chiefs are. It's just fact that it's insanely difficult, almost impossible, keyword almost, to come back from that type of a deficit. Even in the regular season, let alone the playoffs. This is going to be a good game. I understand the casual NFL fans are going to say, oh yeah, the Chiefs are going to run them over, no problem. But they said that 2 weeks ago against the Patriots. They said that last week against the Ravens. The Chiefs will win this game, but the Titans will keep it competitive. Moving over now to Packers 49ers. And I will start with the Packers. What can you say about Aaron Rodgers that hasn't already been said? I mean, seriously, it feels like I'm wasting your time talking about how great he is. To say he's a future Hall of Famer is an insult to him. It's not a stretch to say that he'd be on your Mount Rushmore of quarterbacks. He had a very good game last week against the Seahawks. He didn't play great. He was very good. And there are very few quarterbacks in this league that I'd rather have quarterbacking my team in the playoffs than Rodgers. Moving on to the other Aaron now, and that's Jones. He didn't have a great game last week against the Seahawks, but he had a really good year. Touchdown a game, rushed for over 1,000 yards. The Packers are going to need to get him going if they want to win this game. They can't just rely on Rodgers. The Niners' defense is too good for that. They have to get the running game going as well as the passing game. And speaking of the passing game, I said this on Monday. It's really amazing how Rodgers and Adams click every single game. Go back and listen to Monday's show if you haven't already. I don't want to repeat myself, but it's simply incredible what they're able to do every week, especially given the Packers' lack of playmakers when it comes to their pass catchers. The Achilles heel for the Packers in the past has been their lack of defense. Their defense has never been great. It's always been just good. But this year you can make an argument for it being great. Zadarius Smith, Kenny Clark, Adrian Amos, Tremont Williams, Jair Alexander, Darnell Savage, Preston Smith, Tyler Lancaster, Dean Lowry, Kevin King, Kyler Fackrell. Do I need to go on? I mean, my God. They all had really good years. Give Mike Pettin a ton of credit. And in the game last week, those guys stepped up. Guys like Preston Smith, Kenny Clark, Darnell Savage, Adrian Amos, and Kevin King. They all stepped up and helped slow down a very, very, very good Seahawks offense. There's no reason to think that they can't do it again against a worse quarterback and a much worse offense. And give Matt LaFleur credit for breathing new life into Rodgers, for breathing new life into the Packers. It wasn't too long ago that we were all thinking that their championship window had closed. They were never going to win another Super Bowl. They would never be a threat in the playoffs. Now, you can't say that. And you gotta give LaFleur a ton of credit for that. That's why Cowboys fans should be scared. Look how much better the Packers look now without McCarthy. But that's a topic for another day. Moving over to the Niners. Garoppolo needs to play much better than he did last week. They're going up against a much better team this week. And Tevin Coleman is not going to rush for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. Again, the Niners need to get their offense clicking to win this game. Guys like Kittle, Sanders, and Samuel all need to step up. Now, they don't all need to have 100 yards receiving. Would never happen in a million years, but they all need to execute. They can't go invisible for long stretches. The thing with Garoppolo is he's a good quarterback. He's a very good quarterback, but it's his weapons on offense that make him look great. I'm not trying to take anything away from Garoppolo. I give Garoppolo credit for coming back from the injury and starting 16 games. There's no question that he's going to win Comeback Player of the Year. But I don't think he's a great quarterback. I think he's a very good quarterback that is looking great because of the system around him. With Kittle, Sanders, Samuel, and Kyle Shanahan. And even then, I have my own issues with Shanahan. I don't like how, and his father did this too, I don't like how 1 week he can use a player, and then next week, he's in the doghouse. Week in and week out, he just alternates the guys who he chooses to feature in the offense. It's really, really frustrating to me. The exceptions to that rule this year are, of course, Garoppolo, Kittle, Sanders, and Samuel, but Dante Pettis was supposed to have a really big year this year, and he didn't. And the Niners could never settle on a feature back. It's just always been really, really frustrating to me. The key to the Niners is their defense, though. And Robert Saleh, I'm stunned, did not get a head coaching job. Makes you wonder where the league is headed, where the most deserving candidate on the defensive side of the ball got shunned for quote-unquote offensive wunderkinds that have never proven themselves at all. Or, at the very least, I understand Saleh hasn't either, but at the very least, haven't proven themselves as much as Saleh. But I digress. Eric Armstead, Richard Sherman, Nick Bosa, Dee Ford, Jimmy Ward, DeForest Buckner, Kawan Williams, and Emmanuel Mosley have been really, really good this year. It's scary how dominant Nick Bosa has been. This is a guy who was coming off an injury at OSU, would have been the first overall pick if he had stayed healthy. He goes second, and immediately just dominates. He was their best player last week. Nick Bosa was the Niners' best player last week. That is unheard of for a defensive rookie to be the best player for a team in his first playoff game. And to have that team win, I don't think that's ever been done before. Dre Greenlaw looked good too, as did DeForest Buckner, Fred Warner, Kawan Williams. The guys who I mentioned already really stepped up. I think the Packers are going to cover the spread, but in a game that will be won on a field goal in the last minutes of the game, I'm picking the San Francisco 49ers. And we will not have a rematch of Super Bowl I. It would be amazing if we had a rematch of Super Bowl I, though. The NFL's 100th year to have a rematch of the first Super Bowl. That'd be pretty cool. But I don't think it's going to happen. Moving on now to Louisville Duke tomorrow. It's the only game this weekend, and that counts tonight, that features two ranked teams going at it. I'll start with Louisville, and when you think of Louisville this year, you only think of one guy, and that's Jordan Nwora. What Nwora has done is really, really impressive. He's elevated his game to another level. Last year, he was averaging 17 points a game, 7.5 rebounds, a little less than 1.5 assists on 44.5% from the field and 37.5% from beyond the arc. Really good year. Can't take that away from him. This year, he's been sensational. He's averaging 20.5 points. Yes, less rebounds. Not much of a difference in assists. But where his game has improved tenfold is in his efficiency. 48% from the field. 44% from 3. it is not a stretch to say that he may be the best player in the ACC. Especially given how guys like Cole Anthony and Vernon Carey have slipped. We all expected those guys to come in and immediately dominate. They're having decent years, but not as good as Noir. The thing that I don't like about this Louisville team is they're very one-dimensional, though. The only way that they beat you is by Noir going off. And when he's off, they're gonna struggle. And Krzyzewski feeds on that. Krzyzewski loves when you have just one guy that he can key in on and he can make him look mortal. And it's going to be very interesting to see how Chris Mack tries to counter that. Now, I like Chris Mack. I think he's a really good coach. He doesn't get the national recognition that he should, but he's not even in the same galaxy as Krzyzewski. The thing about Duke in this game is their depth is going to be really tested here. Joey Baker is a game-time decision, and Wendell Moore is out. Those are their two best bench players. Now, the one good thing about that for Duke is that they can let guys like Carey, Trey Jones, Cassius Stanley, and Matthew Hurt run a little bit more. They can let him get going a little bit more. They won't take him out of their rhythm just to give him a brief rest. Which I feel like Duke has done a lot this year. They're 10 deep, but the way that they're subbing guys in and out is just weird. They're not letting these guys ball out. Usually in college, because these guys are so young and you only have them for 1 year if they're super duper talents, is you'll let the guy go for a really, really long time, and then you'll bench him when you see that he's really gassed or, he's just disappeared for a few plays. Duke hasn't done that this year. Duke has had a very strict rotation. The only guy who they're really letting run for an extended period of time is Trey Jones, who has elevated his game to another level. But it's going to be very interesting to see how that changes tomorrow. I mean, it has to change. There's no way that he's going to put in some schmageggies that we've never heard of before and expect them to do what Moore and Baker do, assuming Baker doesn't play. This is going to be a good game. It's at Cameron. So for that reason, and combined with the fact that Louisville is very one-dimensional, and Krzyzewski loves going up against those types of teams, I'm picking Duke. The baseball signings that I want to talk about aren't earth-shattering by any stretch, but they're still worth talking about. I'll start with the Giants signing Drew Smyly for 1 year at $4 million. There was a time when Smyly was a really, really good pitcher and was actually one of the better young starters in the game. But then he tried to pitch through an injury in 2016. He had to miss 2 years. He came back last year, and I still think that the injury is affecting him a little bit because he has been a shell of his former self. Last year he went 4-7 with a 6.24 ERA. I mean, Smyly is a better pitcher than that when he's healthy. Just look at what he did for the Tigers. It's a good bounce-back move. It's a very Mets-like move based on just what the Mets did this year and bringing in Porcello and Waka. Obviously, there's some risk here if they're expecting Smiley to fill a high-leverage starter role or even bullpen role, which is something I've seen rumored. You can't count on him for that based on his injury history and the fact that he was so bad last year. But at $4 million, I don't mind bringing him in and seeing if he can right the ship. The second signing is the Braves signing Adeiny Hechavarria to a 1-year deal for $1 million. I always liked Hechavarria. Even when he wasn't with the Yankees, I always liked watching him play. Played really good defense and was decent with the bat. He didn't get on base a lot. He doesn't draw walks, which I know the sabermetric guys love. But he could hit. He actually has a career .253 average, which for a defensive wunderkind is not terrible. You can get away with that. He's gonna fill the role that he filled last year for the Braves as a utility infielder who you can put in late in games defensively. I think it makes all the sense in the world to bring him in for just $1 million. On Monday, I'm going to be breaking down the 2 football games, along with anything else that breaks this weekend. You'll also get a special New York Islanders show. It's absolutely infuriating how they can't beat their arch rival. The old chant used to be the Islanders fans saying to the Rangers fans, "You can't beat us." And the Rangers fans would say, "Make the playoffs." But you really can't say that now, can you, Islanders fans? Oh, man, they need a lot of help. I'm going to break it all down on Monday. Until next time, I am Jacob Valk saying that for the Washington Senators, the worst time of year was the baseball season.